National grocery chain Loblaws is in a serious amount of trouble. It is now being reported by the TO blog and many other outlets that Canadians are now stealing overpriced food from grocery stores with no remorse. And that is an actual title to blog posts. Now, for those of you not in the know, because Canadian news tends not to be very well known, a grocery store chain, Loblaws, has been massively overpricing food in what is essentially a screw job to Canadians. A week ago, an image of a pack of 4 chicken breasts, or, which is actually 2 chickens, with the breast sliced in 2, went for $37. $37. The absurdity of that is beyond anything. It's just completely ridiculous. Now a lot of people got outraged and were demanding an investigation into Loblaw's pricing. Now this comes after last year, many of the grocery chains in Canada were accused of price fixing in order to gouge consumers. You see, this has been going on for long enough, and Parliament decided they were actually going to do something about it. Legislation, or at least some ideas tabled by Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the New Democratic Party, wanted to look into this and investigate them. Immediately following that declaration, the grocery chains decided that they were going to investigate themselves and see if something was going on. Which I'm not really sure how that's supposed to work. That's like when the police investigate themselves to see if they did anything wrong. Well, the prices came down a bit after that. This is a phenomenon that's becoming to be known as greedflation. When you have inflation, prices are going up, and people understand that prices are going up because inflation is happening, they decide to tack on a little bit more just to screw you. Hence the term greedflation. Okay. So, now, grocery theft has always been, quote-unquote, a problem, because it's only been a problem for, the people that are overcharging for food. But now, apparently, it is becoming so great that consumers are starting to completely lose their patience. That when prices rise far beyond the rate of inflation, like if inflation goes up 5%, but the price goes up, 10 or 15, 20%, obviously they're screwing you at this point. The prices are above inflation, and the corporate giants are pulling in record profits. Now, apparently, it's getting so bad that a lot of people are willing to risk criminal charges, theft under $5,000, to stick it to the system. Or, avoid starvation, which Blog TO points out very well. Now, according to some industry data, an average-sized food retail store in Canada can have between $2,000 to $5,000 worth of groceries stolen per week. And I gotta tell you, I would have thought it was actually more. And this is according to a post written for the Retail Insider on January 10th. Now, they say normally the profit margins on grocery stores are actually very thin. This is actually, supposedly a very large loss for them. Now, the average family of four is expected to spend more than $16,000 on groceries this year, roughly 1,066 more, or 7% than they did in 2022, with the use of food banks spiking to new all-time highs. Well, this might seem like stealing groceries may be considered a good idea by some people. And some people, like the food professor Charbois, says, if you're too poor to afford food and the government doesn't give you any options, taking food from a corporate grocery chain to survive doesn't sound like theft to me. That's to quote the man himself. And he certainly got a good point. When you have Galen Weston and his family, the people who own Loblaws, have been profiteering for decades. And if you think it's wrong to steal food in order to survive, I mean, I know most people, when they think of that, they think of it as like some kid stealing candy or some teenager stealing chips pop in a bar. But realistically, a lot of it is people actually trying to survive, and because middle class people frequently don't see them happening, they tend to think that it's really just people just trying to get a free meal and don't actually see people trying to struggle. But trust me, it's actually there. And Loblaws is furious. They're angry that anyone would dare steal from them, and that kind of theft is on the rise. People trying to survive. But when you shove people into a situation like that, well, you gotta expect that they're going to retaliate in some way, shape, or form about being able to survive. And the mainstream media is somewhat picking this up and somewhat going with it because, the mainstream media loves a outlandish story for ratings, but they're very careful on what to pick in terms of things that could be considered a criticism of capitalism. And now some are happy to do so because it would force some kind of change or some kind of reform in order to stabilize the system so they don't lose it. I mean, that's really the point of welfare programs to begin with, not out of some form of compassion that the ruling class has towards people who are having difficulty getting by, but a fear of what the public reaction to things like this might be. Like, trashing the system or proposing radical alternatives. So, the media coverage sparse, but it's there. But the fun part is the whole idea that people who shoplift food to get by should be considered, some people should be shamed. But not the fact that half of all food in the Western world, just about half, Canada, the United States, the UK, and very probably Australia as well, is thrown out. Disposed of, thrown in the garbage. Most of it due to some form of consumer pickiness, or just goes unsold. But then again, we're supposed to believe that capitalism is the most efficient system ever. I can't think of anything that would deliberately destroy 50% of everything it produces as being efficient. Especially when you have literally 10 million children a year dying from poverty across the world. To give you some kind of perspective on how large that is, because 10 million is an astronomical number, think of the entire child population of France or Germany dying every year. And the outrage there would be if they did. But, the child deaths spread out over a number of continents, and they're usually not white, so, they don't matter. There is nothing but the absolute anarchy of the market, the inefficiency of a profit-driven system that's causing this. These so-called, so vaunted profit motive and greed being good and natural, so therefore do it because, naturalistic fallacy is driving this. And the media is absolutely gauche to actually acknowledge this. I mean, why would you... Why would they acknowledge that when they can just say, "Oh, it's just corporate greed. We just legislate this away." It's very much that liberal stance of, okay, yeah, this bad thing is happening under capitalism, but it's not capitalism's fault. How could you actually derive greed from being as this outrageous greed as being created by a system that's literally based on greed, or complaining about inequality from a system that's literally predicated on inequality? It's it's that absolute deliberate ignorance. Is that the word we're looking for here? So, with all of this, and a complete unwillingness to acknowledge that capitalism is the problem, logically, and I could go very much further into the nature of first worldism, etc. What we should do at this point is at least acknowledge that there's a problem, even if, generally speaking, first world people aren't going to do it. Just to remind you, because I'm sure you already know, if you see somebody shoplifting food, no, you didn't.
Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.